Hi, welcome back traders. In this video, I'll go over stock index ETF and index futures for the week ahead. Support and resistance level or supply and demand zones, along with the chart analysis. SPX and ES futures weekly lows per my supply and demand zones. I gave you these supply-demand zones over the last weekend. I had weekly low on S&P 500 at 3,886. What do you think was last week's low on Thursday? It was 3,885.70. For the ES futures, I gave weekly low as 3,901. The low on Thursday was actually 3,901.75. How about that? It's all given for free. So please share and like, so more people can benefit. Let's get right into the video. Let's look at the SPY, S and SPX. This is SPY chart and levels from the last week. SPY is currently trading around $395.88. SPY spent most of last week in the downside into my support zones and got back to the neutral zone. The supply and demand zones are unchanged from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $403.86, second resistance is at $406.38. The weekly resistance is at $410.49. Support or demand for SPY would be first at $394. The next area of support will be $391, and weekly support will be at $389. This is SPX chart and levels from the last week. SPX is currently trading around 3,972. SPX spent most of last week in the downside into my support zones and got back to the neutral zone. The supply and demand zones are unchanged from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $4,038, second resistance is at $4,074. The weekly resistance is at $4,122. Support or demand for SPX would be first at $3,928. The next area of support will be $3,903, and weekly support will be at $3,886. This is ES futures chart and levels from the last week. ES futures are currently trading around $3,988. Similar to SPY and SPX, ES futures spent most of last week in the downside into my support zones and got back to the neutral zone. The supply and demand zones are unchanged from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $4,057, second resistance is at $4,087. The weekly resistance is at $4,134. Support or demand for ES futures would be first at $3,980. The next area of support will be $3,936, and weekly support will be at $3,901. Now, let's look at the QQQ and NQ futures. This is QQQ's chart and levels from the last week. QQQ is currently trading around $282.68. QQQ spent most of last week in the downside into my support zones and got back to the neutral zone. The supply and demand zones are unchanged from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $287.80. Second resistance is at $291. The weekly resistance is at $297. Support or demand for QQQ would be first at $276. The next area of support will be $273, and weekly support will be at $268. This is NQ futures chart and levels from the last week. NQ futures are currently trading around $11,677. The supply and demand zones are unchanged from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $11,740, second resistance is at $11,880. The weekly resistance is at $12,058. Support or demand for NQ futures would be first at $11,438. The next area of support will be $11,362, and weekly support will be at $11,238. I posted another video on trading concepts. Whether you are a beginner or have no prior experience whatsoever, or if you are already a trader, and want to improve your trading, this video will help you. This is Dow Jones ETF's chart and levels from the last week. Dow Jones ETF is currently trading around $333.67. Dow Jones actually closed below my weekly support from last week. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $335, second resistance is at $338. The weekly resistance is at $341. Support or demand for Dow Jones ETF would be first at $331. The next area of support will be $328, and weekly support will be at $326. This is IWM's chart and levels from the last week. IWM is the ETF for the Russell 2000 Small Cap Index. IWM is currently trading around $185. IWM also spent most of last week in the support zone. It closed just near the first support at $185. For the coming week, the first resistance is at $188, second resistance is at $189.25. The weekly resistance is at $191.16. Support or demand for IWM would be first at $185. The next area of support will be $183, and weekly support will be at $181. This is VIX's chart and levels from the last week. VIX is currently trading around $19.85. VIX had an expanded zone from prior week. It tested the 21 zone and got rejected. Now under the critical 20 level. For the coming week, the first resistance is at 20.55, second resistance is at 21.25. The weekly resistance is at 21.82. Support or demand for VIX would be first at 19.28. The next area of support will be 18.71, and weekly support will be at 18. That's all in this video. Do let me know how do you plan to use these supply and demand zones. Please drop a like, or share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.